Today my guest is Dave Bost of the Thirsty Developer. Dave, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
You're well. First of all, you're telling me what you do a lot of things. You're an evangelist, right?
Yeah, so I'm a developer evangelist for Microsoft, based out of Chicago.
Great city.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this part of it? I know you're the host of the podcast Thirsty Developer, of which I am a big fan of. I've been listening for about a year now.
Yeah. Thirsty Developer. So Thirsty Developer I've been doing for probably, I guess 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of started both in myself and Larry Clark, who I used to work with. Larry has since moved on to bigger and better things at Microsoft. But when Larry was an evangelist with me, we both started the Thirsty Developer. And it was just this idea of, I always listen to podcasts, and I never listen to the radio anymore.
Right.
And so when I'm in the car traveling or even sitting on a plane or whatever, I'm always listening to some podcast. And that's just kind of the way I keep up on, it's typically technology podcasts, keeping up on the industry and what's going on, and just kind of learning.
I'm the same way. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we were just we always, as evangelists for Microsoft, we have a chance to talk to a lot of different people, a lot of very interesting people. Both, in sort of the Microsoft landscape as well as outside the Microsoft landscape, such here as CodeMesh. You get the Ruby developers, Java developers, and such. Mm-hmm. And we always have great conversations with them. And they always typically take place in some sort of establishment that is serving adult beverages. So,
give me an example of an adult beverage.
A beer,
you're talking about beer,
cocktail, So typically,
we're having
yeah,
water.
we're just doing water. Yeah. So cheers here. Yeah. So anyways, typically, we would, have a user group meeting or a conference or something like that, and the conversations would always extend to the bar. And we were I remember one particular time we're sitting in a bar having drinks, just talking about various things and having very in-depth, great conversations. And I just kind of, was talking, I was like, man, it would be great if we could just get some microphones, turn them on, hit the record button and just tape all this and make this conversation available to everybody else.
Did you do it that night?
We didn't, because we didn't have the equipment.
Oh, so you haven't bought the...
Yeah, so we're like, wouldn't that be great just to kind of have, to record these conversations? Because a lot of people don't really get to participate in those conversations.
Yeah,
and to me, those are the best conversations.
Agreed.
And especially after a few drinks, because people get a little loose and, anyways. But, so that was kind of the idea of kind of recording those barroom conversations.
Yeah.
And so the idea, kind of concept of Thirsty Developers.
So because the idea was spawned in a bar, you call it the Thirsty Developer.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of the PG story and the G story, I guess. That's the PG story. The G story is the sense that, developers typically are kind of, most developers I'd say are like sponges, where they like to absorb new things.
So thirsty refers to that as absorption.
Yes, exactly. Thirsty for knowledge, quench your thirst for knowledge and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
all right, what's the R story? Make one up.
Let's see.
Let's go. No,
I don't know if I want to go there now.
So that's cool. So this really is actually part of your mission as an evangelist.
Yeah.
It's one of the ways that you evangelize.
Exactly. So as evangelists, our job is to kind of reach out to the larger development community and just really be in a sense, a face for Microsoft, in the sense that, as opposed to somebody being in Redmond, locked behind closed doors, pushing out products, we're essentially out in the field,
right,
attending conferences, working with user groups, making sure that the community flourishes, and make sure that they have what they need. And our job working for Microsoft is just to make sure that they understand where Microsoft is going from a technology direction.
Right.
Make sure they have everything they need from an educational standpoint, from a whether or not we could support them by buying pizza for a meeting or something like that, just sort of monetary funding. Not to sort of buy their opinion, but just kind of help them, make sure that they're able to continue and do what they do. And it's always a great opportunity to kind of meet people and see what they're doing. And the coolest thing about my job is that I work for Microsoft, but I talk to lots of different developers. And what's cool about my job is I talk to a lot of different customers as well, in the sense we can see what kind of stuff they're building with the same technology. So they're utilizing pretty much the same tool sets. They're different languages, different compilers, but all in all, it's all the same stuff. But to see all the different kinds of things we're able to build, that kind of opened my eyes. Yeah. And to kind of see what people are doing. And so our job as Microsoft evangelists is it's our job to reach out to the community and just kind of, participate. That's how we like to say, we want to participate in the discussions, participate in the community, answer questions. And if you look at it, I think from a number standpoint, I cover the Midwest district. So Microsoft is split up into regions and districts.
Yeah, so that's like Illinois and Indiana?
Yeah, so my district is Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. And now we have 3 developer evangelists for that district. There used to just be myself, and then Larry was an architect evangelist, kind of somewhat similar roles, but different roles. But if you look at, I think, the numbers, right, because Microsoft's about numbers, is that my understanding is there's apparently 190,000 developers just in the Midwest District alone that people consider themselves developers.
It's tough to meet those.
Yeah,
those
exactly. So our job is to kind of reach all of them, right? So how do we do that? We can't meet face to face. So what can we do to kind of extend our reach? And those are the things like the podcast.
Okay. Is your podcast focused primarily on Microsoft technologies? Or
no, absolutely not. I mean, we don't. It's kind of funny in the sense that we don't host our podcast on Microsoft's websites. It's our own sort of website that we put together, and there's a reason for that, because we don't want to have conversations that are geared towards just Microsoft. Mm-hmm. We've had people on there talking about Ruby. We have people on there talking about iPhone development, and we kind of approach it more from an agnostic standpoint. It's more, I'm a technologist at heart. Yes, I work for Microsoft, but I'm a technologist at heart. I'm interested in what's going on in Ruby. I'm interested in what's going on in Java. I'm interested in iPhone development, Android phone development. And just kind of keep just be aware of what's going on in the industry.
The product teams are interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can take that input back and say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. Hopefully, we can make our products better, and then sort of kind of continue from there.
Okay. But is there what makes your podcast different from all the other podcasts out there? Or are you trying to? Maybe is that a goal of yours?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it depends on the audience, right? So. I don't think we're trying to differentiate ourselves from anybody else. We may have an opportunity to talk. I mean, there's other podcasts. .NET Rocks kind of started this thing, and they've kind of built up this huge following. Yep. And so we kind of follow some of the groundwork they've already laid. But in our sense, they can't talk to everybody. We can't talk to everybody. But it's kind of the idea is that what we try to do. Initially, our podcast, I'd say, really started focusing on people that are more local to us. Yep. In a sense of kind of who are the people that are doing interesting things that are sort of more local to our location, because it was easier to do interviews, one-on-one, in-person kind of thing versus kind of over.
Sure, and .NET Rocks, I'm a big fan of .NET Rocks, but they do have a lot of the same guests repeating themselves. And so they have they're not geographically local, but they're local to their community of influence. Right. And there's a lot of people that they're missing. And they'd be actually the first to acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. And I have my sphere of influence that people that I interact with, I try to get them on my show because I know they're smart people. I relate to them, and they're not. Maybe some of them are not really as well known. Mm-hmm. I seldom have celebrities like yourself.
Well, I don't know about that.
And, you're the same way. You're in Chicago, different geographic region, and
because we get
just different perspective as opposed to trying to be something totally different.
Yeah, we get to talk to different people. Yeah. And coming from internal to Microsoft, we might have a little bit more of an insight about. One of the things that we try to do are what are our customers asking? What questions are they asking? And can we bring somebody that's sort of from that product team or somebody that has that expert knowledge to kind of, sort of answer those questions kind of more on a broad basis as well.
So you've got access to people.
So we have a little bit more access. It's not, we don't have great access because we're still located in Chicago versus, somebody being in Redmond or somebody being from a development team in North Carolina or such. So the thing that we fight with today is trying to find the best way to kind of do that remote interview.
So let's talk about the production of actually how do you do this podcast? First, how do you find your guests and arrange that interview? That's the first step, right?
It's a great question. Like I said before, in the sense that we being an evangelist for Microsoft, we get to talk to a lot of people in the kind of at the user group meetings, at the conferences and such. And typically what we do is we find people who are maybe they're a speaker at a conference and they're talking about an interesting topic that maybe nobody else has talked about before, or it's something interesting we've never had on the show before. People in our jobs are always asking about that particular topic. So we'll grab them, or we'll try to invite them to say, hey, you want to sit down and just have a chat, and we'll throw the microphones on and have a conversation. And they always say yes. I mean, they never say no. And so we just basically find people who are doing interesting things with the technology, and just kind of set up a time to meet and get together. Or like I said before, when we might meet them at a Starbucks, or kind of meet somewhere where we can get together. That kind of was what the process in the past. Now it's kind of getting to that point where there's people that we want to talk to, that we may not see them for 6 more months until PDC comes up, or Tech Ed comes up, or those conferences.
So you need to set up some phone
So we need to set up,
Skype calls.
Exactly. So we started looking at actually utilizing Skype. Okay. And Skype works. It doesn't work great, because there are still some sort of instances where there are hiccups. Right. And I remember one call that we did with Lokwe Tan and Anand Iyer from the Windows Mobile team, where we did it over Skype, and we kept on having problems where one of us would drop off. Anand would have some problems where the audio would be all garbled up, and the way the technology works is it's like the audio catches up again. So it's like it talks really fast, and the logo would drop off completely. So basically, what happens is that we have to edit a lot of that stuff,
right?
And it just becomes more work for me. And I'd say the easiest part of the whole idea of the podcast is the talking.
Yep.
Even though that's still difficult, because my problem is, and I'm probably doing it right now. My problem is that I find myself.
You don't like to talk.
Well, I don't like talking. Is I talk too fast. I never realized until I started doing a lot of public speaking, and specifically started doing these podcasts, is that I ended up talking too fast. And I started to tell myself to slow down. So even though it's hard to have those conversations, or it's not hard to have the conversations, but it's hard to.
There's
have
a skill involved, some challenges.
Absolutely. I mean, if you watch people that do the news broadcasts or professional like legal report and stuff, I mean, you can hear that they're trained in this and they know how to do it. It's interesting because when you have these conversations, it's a different. I always try to tell people it's like this is just a conversation. Mm-hmm. This is not an interview, right? Because people climb up, they get real tense, and especially when you put a microphone in front of them, they change. They're different people, and especially when they have to hold onto a microphone and stuff. So we do things like now where I'm trying to find a way where nobody has to hold a microphone. Right. Where it's like you'd have to put clip it on a lapel, or I bought like these little headset things where we're going to see if that's a little bit better than people holding a microphone, or even doing something like this where you have it on a stand.
Right.
And because people holding the microphone, they tense up. And what I wanted to do,
forget about it in a couple months.
I just want people to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. It's just like we're sitting at the bar, having our adult beverages of choice, and having that conversation.
Okay, and let's talk about the tools, the technology you're using.
Okay.
You brought some with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we already have some here with us at Code Mash.
And just to be clear, you did some interviews.
Mm-hmm.
You recorded a couple of shows.
Yeah, we had a podcast. Yeah, we did some this afternoon. We're sitting in the lobby of the hotel here, the Kalahari Resort, and people are walking by going, "What's going on over there?" Because we got these microphones and we have this little recording device. I mean, this thing's great. I mean, this is the M-Audio Microtrack 2. I can't see it that well, but you can see that it's small, right? But it does a great job of recording. And essentially what we have here is we have a 1/4-inch input. So we have a microphone cable with the, I think these are 1/4-inch inputs. And so these plug into this M-Audio track device. And, it has a little compact flash card in here. So I don't know if I can pull it out, but there's a compact flash card here. So it records to here. So this is an 8 gig card, and that holds a lot of audio.
But because how many hours of the
right?
I don't know the audio. Does it get resolution or?
No, it's essentially bit rate. So we don't record at a high bit rate because we're not a band recording a new album, right? Okay. We're recording audio. We record in mono because there's no need to record in stereo, and so we're able to capture a little bit more on a particular card. Okay. So every once in a while, maybe every 4 or 5 interviews, I'll obviously. The first thing to do is once you record, and you probably know this, first thing right after you record, back it up to something else just in case, all right? So you can make sure you have it. And so we make sure that we copy off of the card before we accidentally overwrite the card or accidentally format it or whatever. But every so often I'll record it off to another device and then format the card.
Right.
And so we essentially, like today, all we did is we had 2 microphones in this, and that was the podcast.
Okay, so this cable here plugs into the microphone and plugs into this device.
Yeah, so this typical XLR input for a microphone, so it just plugs in there.
Okay.
And then the cable, 1/8 inch goes into here. So this particular device only supports 2 microphones. So this is great on one-on-one conversations. Mm-hmm. But the challenge that I ran into is that what if we want to have more of a roundtable discussion or more than one other individual or 2 people talking? So what do we have? So actually, I started doing a lot of research, and so I got this device, which this particular one is, it's an M-Audio Fast Track Ultra, and this is essentially, it's just, from what I've heard, the explanation is it's an external sound card for your computer.
Okay.
But it just happens to have 4 XLR inputs.
And it has some knobs on it.
It has essentially it has gains for the microphone. So we can this one you can plug up to 4 microphones in there.
Okay.
And then you just have the different levels where you can control different microphone levels because some people talk loud, some people talk soft. Okay. Some people like to hold the microphone here, some like to hold it here. So
do you do that live during the interview, or do you do that afterwards?
No, I'll wear headphones during the interview.
You do this like sound check.
Yeah, I'll do a sound check, and I'll wear little earbuds or something during the interview, just so I can hear what's going on in the background, and I'll adjust the levels accordingly. But when it all comes down to it, at the end of the day, we go through we utilize software tools to kind of clean up the audio.
Okay.
Now I'm not great at it. I know enough to be dangerous. We use Adobe Audition, We used to use Audacity, which is a free open source product,
Right.
and we switched over to Adobe Audition just because it has a little bit more features and a little bit more of a professional tool. And so we utilize that tool to kind of, sometimes the way it works is for the thirsty developer, it kind of switches back and forth depending on time and how we want to push the recording out. But there's always an interview, at least. There's an interview. And typically what we'll do is we'll have, what we call banter. So it used to be me and Larry Clarkin, and now we have another individual that's joined our team, Clark Sell, so he's the new co-host of the Thirsty Developer. So we'll record kind of banter, kind of introducing sort of, the interview, sort of a little background.
That's on a different day.
That's on a completely different day.
Okay.
Most of the, 99%
So you
of the time.
record this interview out in the field somewhere or over the phone,
Yeah.
and then a few days later you'll
Absolutely.
record banter to sort of introduce it.
That's right. So we'll record banter, and sometimes what we'll do is we'll actually, Clark will have a recording device, I'll have a recording device, and then we'll get on the phone, and we'll both talk into a microphone, and then when we're done, he'll send me his audio file, and I'll take my audio file, and I need to merge them up. And that, I would say that's probably one of the hardest parts of editing, is when you're taking two tracks, and you're trying to merge them on a time basis to where they match up
So
perfectly.
you do the 1, 2, 3 now.
Yeah,
right?
1, 2, 3, clap or something like that. And you
Right.
try to get that. But actually, what I found out is depending on the recording device, some recording devices will actually record sometimes at a slower rate than the other one.
Oh, really?
So I have found times where even though we've
You
lined
start
them
at the
up,
same spot, but
they start at the same spot, but once you get 30 minutes
Raced
into it,
ahead.
it's a little bit off, and you're just like,
Interesting.
it seems strange.
Do
So
you use that same process then when you're interviewing somebody? That main interview is over the phone or
Um,
over Skype?
So the main interview is either on in the field with this or with the M audio track here. So the main interview is typically recorded.
If you're
on
interviewing
here.
somebody that's in Redmond,
Yeah.
you have to talk to them via Skype or via
So,
phone.
yeah,
Are,
so-
are they uploading audio files, or are you just recording what's on Skype?
So right now with Skype, we use a product called Pamela. Pamela ties into Skype, so Pamela can essentially capture all the audio going through Skype and record.
Okay.
And so we use Pamela on top of Skype to essentially record the Skype call. Now the problem with that is that it's not, the audio is not that great.
Okay.
I mean, what would be nice is we're trying to figure out the best way to do this. Do we send some, ship them something like this and say, hey, just talk into this and send it to us back, and we'll merge it up, or do we just accept, the Skype call with the audio?
Okay.
Now we're not professional. This is all sort of shoestring, seat of our pants kind of recording stuff. So
I can relate to that.
and we're not trying to be professional. The important thing is as long as we capture the conversation and we share that conversation with everybody else, that's good enough for us. If
That's
the
what I
audio-
tell people.
if-
It's the content that's important.
That's
any,
right.
any shortcomings in the audio, shortcomings in the video, forgive them if the content is great.
Right.
And if you got a good guest, that's usually true.
Yeah, if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back.
I'm with that.
But yeah, you're right. The content is important. That's the whole kind of thing with podcasts. They're not meant to be sort of professional audio. I know some people go all out and they create it that way, and that's great. It's nice. But we also do a lot of work to make it sound as best as it can, so it's not excruciating to listen to, because otherwise you're not going to listen.
All right. Anything else you could tell me about the podcast?
Yeah. So there's just to kind of wrap up the editing. So we put it through Adobe Audition. And there's another tool, so if people want to do this podcast, there's
Yeah.
a tool you want to buy. It's called Levelator.
Okay.
It's kind of like probably the best little piece of software you can buy
What does that
for
do?
your podcast. Levelator is actually a tool that somebody wrote on top of Audacity. I mean, you don't see Audacity is
Audacity
a
or
regular
Audition?
brand. Audacity.
Okay.
They essentially took some of the plugins that were written for Audacity to kind of clean up audio, like doing things like normalizing and various other things. So they took like the plugins for those, and they kind of just wrapped it around this one little tool called Levelator. And the thing, it's just a little window that you're looking at, and you need to drag and drop WAV files onto this, and it'll levelate the audio track. So that kind of cleans up all the audio, brings all the levels in so they're even and everything else. So essentially what I do is I edit with Audition, merge all the tracks, kind of our opening music, or kind of our introduction,
So
our
you got
banter.
one big WAV file.
So I got one big WAV file, and then I take that WAV file, and the last step is I run it through Levelator. And Levelator kind of cleans things up and does whatever it does. It's a little magic. Whatever it does, it sounds a lot better than what I have in Audition.
Okay, so it's a nice, easy one-step process.
It's a cleanup,
that you
yeah.
can do to clean up.
Yeah, it's a cleanup, and so then I take that WAV file, bring it back in Audition, and then export that as an MP3 file.
Okay.
And then from there, I apply all the appropriate tags that we can then that are specific to the MP3 file, all the different artists and album track information that then is picked up by both the Zoom Marketplace software as well as the iTunes software.
Okay.
through the RSS feeds.
And people that want to listen to your podcast, they go to the Zoom Marketplace and search for it. Is that the best
Yeah,
place?
so-
Or to go to your website?
They can go multiple places. One of the things I just added with the website, and the website, don't get me started on that. Yes, we need to clean it up, I understand. Make it a little bit more professional.
Well, you know what? You say that. I'm going to interject here.
Yeah, yeah.
But I heard Chris Woodruff talking about they were thinking about cleaning up their website. I listen to Deep Fried Bites all the time. I haven't missed an episode. I bet I've been to their website twice.
That's true. That's true.
I couldn't tell you what color their
Right.
website is.
But the one of the
Most
things
people don't care.
That's right. I mean, you're absolutely right. But it's still one of those things that just I don't care if anybody else cares. I care.
Okay.
It just bugs me to
Saying.
no end, right? But what I did just add is the ability where you can actually play the episode on the website, so you don't have to download it. I mean,
Okay.
we welcome you to download it, but if you don't have, I mean, gosh, if you don't have an MP3 player, a way to play MP3,
Yeah.
or maybe you just want to check it out. There's a way to play each episode. So if you go to each episode's entry, there's a little Silverlight player that you can play the episode.
Oh.
So we just added that. So it's at thirstydeveloper.com. You can also go to Zoom and iTunes Marketplace, and you can just search for Dave Bost or Thirsty Developer, and it'll come up, and you can download it to your favorite MP3 player.
Okay.
That's about it.
That's awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. I
Hey, I
really
appreciate
your time.
Yeah,
I like your show.
thank you. My friends know nothing about technology. I'm the technology support for my friends.